If you came up to me at a party and said, let's play werewolf, I'd tell you I'd rather play a game of jacks with a 19th century peasant who has highly contagious polio. No, I'm not joking. Werewolf is the worst party game to suggest to play across the board. And I love party games. I love playing a board game. I have so much fun playing Clue that, yeah, it borders on sexual attraction at times. I don't know what's sadder about me, the fact that when I get high, I go online and play rounds of Catan with people I've just met on co-op, or the fact that I've seriously never won a game of Catan. I once played a game of cards with a guy at a bar and had so much fun that I assumed I must be attracted to you, only for us to stop playing spades and for all interest to dissolve right then and there. But the genuine despair I feel when the word werewolf is uttered at a party, I can only describe it as the exact opposite of what a dog must feel like when the word leash is said. Ah! But we are going to play one final game of werewolf. You and me, the last one. So that we can finally prove once and for all that werewolf is the worst party game to play. And so that no one has to suffer anymore. So let's play werewolf. Let's play werewolf. Let's play. But okay, what is werewolf? Well, for those of you who are lucky enough to not know, werewolf is a social deception game that usually has around 10 people. And I say usually because you will never play the same game of werewolf twice. But let's put a pin in that, because we haven't gotten there yet. The basic setup of werewolf sort of goes like this. There's always going to be a moderator. For right now, that's me. I'm going to facilitate conversation, pick out who's what role, and I'm going to guide you through all of the nights. I'm truly honored to have this role that I have given myself. The villagers, more shockingly, trying to defend their village. They do this by observing all the players and voting off the ones who are most suspicious. They need to find the werewolf and vote them off before the werewolf can kill them. The werewolves, shockingly, want to pose as villagers until nighttime, where they can go on a rampant murder spree of exactly one person per night. If you're the werewolf, you need to lie and manipulate all the other villagers so that you can stay in the game and continue killing off innocent people so that you can take over the village. Does this sound familiar? That's because it's basically just a more complicated version of Mafia. Yeah. If we want to play Mafia, why can't we just play Mafia? This is why anyone who suggests werewolf should be shot. The seer is a villager role. You're still innocent and you're actively trying to win with the rest of the town. Let's call them townies for now. If you have a special role, you'll be asked to wake up in the middle of the night to perform your ability. So the seer wakes up in the middle of the night, points to the player that they want confirmation on, and the moderator, that's the person who is supposed to keep the game running smoothly, but is always the person who knows the least amount about the game. Like, they always seem to be confused. And then the moderator will nod and shake their head, depending on if the person they're pointing to is or is not the werewolf. But the seer has to be really careful about when and how they choose to divulge their information. Because once the werewolf knows you're the seer, yeah, they're gonna come for you. The doctor is self-explanatory. You get to choose to save a random villager who you think the werewolf could be after. And you can also save yourself. And then you have the wild card roles, which are roles that nobody understands how to play, so they're virtually useless to have. So now you know how to play. Are you ready? That's too damn bad, because the group of people that you got asked to play with has two people who have never heard of the game before, and they both weren't listening. So that explanation that you've heard 5,000 times and that genuinely takes 20 minutes to get through. Round two. A game of Mafia. It's gonna play out like this. So the whole village is going to go to sleep, and then the people with abilities are going to wake up staggered throughout the night to perform those abilities. So the werewolf is going to wake up and point to someone who they want to kill. The doctor is going to wake up and point to someone who they want to save. The seer is going to get confirmation on someone's ability, etc., etc., etc. Sounds simple, right? Well, let's hope you got asked to play the classic version of werewolf and not the countless others that exist. The version of werewolf that I run into most commonly is called Ultimate Werewolf, or the more complicated version of that complicated version, One Night Ultimate Werewolf, both by Bazier Games. So if you were worried that you might actually have a pretty decent understanding of the game you're playing, don't worry. This complicated version of werewolf has roles like the minion. You're a villager, but you're on the werewolves team, and you win with the bad guys, but the werewolves don't get to know who you are. Troublemaker. You can switch two other players' cards. The players who received that card are now the roles and team of their new card, even though they won't know what that card is until the game has finished. Yeah, you can't look at your own card until it's over. The Tanner/Jester. You're not on the villager side or the werewolf side. Your only goal is to get voted out and die. Hunter, Insomniac, Mason. Would you believe me if I told you that these aren't even all the roles? And actually, I understand why One Night Werewolf has all of these absolutely absurd cards, because the whole goal of the game is to just do it all in one night. So the game needs to give people enough to go off of to actually solve the question of who is the werewolf. So everybody gets a little piece of information that nobody else gets. But you don't understand. Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that. Nobody understands. So I get it. For One Night Werewolf, you need all those roles to play the game. So why do I see them in every other game of werewolf? You look a little confused. Do you just want to start playing? You know, get the gist of it as you go along. You've just run into our second issue. And I'll explain that to you as I introduce you to your team. Every single person you are playing with has a different experience level and a different understanding of the game at hand. You've had people who have played One Night Werewolf before. Then you have people who played Ultimate Werewolf. Eventually, you'll get a person who says, oh, I've played Mafia before. Is it just like that? At this point, you have the option to put everyone out of their misery and just play Mafia. You won't, though. And thus we must persist. So you have this wide skill gap that makes the rounds frustrating for everyone because there's no level of consistent strategy being used. Someone who genuinely enjoys the game is going to find these rounds frustrating because the people who have never played before aren't playing on their level of strategy. But also, the people who have never played before are going to feel frustrated and stupid because they can't play on the level of everybody else. And that's not a knock on anyone, because the game itself with the overflow of rules makes that skill gap even wider and more difficult to manage, because you're basically throwing someone into a DLC and then never allowing them to understand and grasp the core concept of the game. It's like asking someone to read a Hunger Games, Glee, Twilight crossover AU, but they haven't seen any of the shows or read any of the books. It's like if Merlin got shifted into Stranger Things. And I've definitely never read anything like that. You can't ask someone to read a Doctor Who Hunger Games crossover when they haven't read any of the source material. They just can't thrive if you shove them into it in its literally most high concept form. Take the role of the Tanner or the Jester, for instance, okay? This role only wins if they get voted out and die. That is the only way that this role can win. Now, this role exists because it's meant to discourage people from just mass laissez-faire voting. You have to actually think, is the person I'm voting out suspicious, or are they just trying to seem suspicious so that they can get voted out, die, and win? But how are you expected to understand the game theory of that role when you don't even really understand how to play the villager? And there are so many roles in this game that are just like that people understand how to execute technically, but they don't know why they are actually included. And that's not their fault. They aren't being introduced to the game correctly. They were never given the tools to understand and play the bare bones version of the game. You have a bunch of stupid roles that nobody even understands how to play because nobody is dedicated enough to the love of the game to just be a regular villager. If you want a participation trophy, just say that. Why do you have to waste my time with a role called the Drunk? I'm convinced that half of the card switching roles in One Night Werewolf aren't actually useful. It's just to placate people so that they don't have to play a boring villager role. Okay, nobody wants to be a boring villager, so now we all have to play werewolf on steroids.
Let's start with the questions that people around the world have been waiting for you to answer. Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
You will need, at minimum, 5 games for everyone to even start to understand it. And the most difficult part is that once the game starts, you can't ask any clarifying questions, because if you ask a question, gee, I wonder what card you have. And messing up would be fine if these games didn't take so long when they're not supposed to. But okay, I have handed out all of the roles. In our regular game of werewolf, we have 1 werewolf, 8 villagers. Okay, actually, I just realized I forgot 2 people. I need 10 for this video. Welcome John Locke and Mabifica, which is Mabel and Pacifica from Gravity Falls. Oh, actually? So all 3 of them can be together? Okay, I've handed out all the roles. In this new board of people, there is 1 werewolf, 1 seer, 1 doctor, and 8 villagers. Everyone playing will go to sleep. The moderator will now walk everyone through their roles. Doctor, wake up. Point to who you'd like to save. Okay, doctor, go to sleep. Seer, wake up. Point to, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention that because you have more than 6 people here, you are going to struggle and fail to keep them all focused when they should be. Eventually, all the roles are done, and the villagers will awake to a murder. It is unfortunate, but someone has to die to play this game. Don't worry though, we should be back to playing it soon, right? Because it shouldn't take that long. Right? You must all talk amongst yourself and discuss who could have possibly committed this atrocity. And the answer is not network television. Except remember, all 9 of these players are at a different level of competitiveness, strategy, or experience with the game. And also, did anyone just give up playing when they realized that they weren't going to be a special role and are now just playing the game to get it over with so that they can be werewolf or a special role faster? Like the worst game of Among Us ever. In One Night Ultimate Werewolf, this will be the only discussion period that you get before you have to vote someone out. And if you don't vote out the werewolf, then you just lose. But if you're lucky enough, you'll be playing the version of werewolf that has 9 different roles and goes on for so long that you're sitting on your friend's floor going, why can't I just have fun like everybody else? Why do I have to be the only one who sees how awful this game is, even though everyone I know loves it? Why do they do this to me? And that's time. While the villagers were busy talking about things that weren't important, you were having an identity crisis. So now everyone's on a different page. Are you playing with the dumb rule that someone has to be voted out at the end of day 1, even though it's literally nothing more than a guess, and that statistically it's actually more helpful for the werewolf to do that? You probably are, because all of the rules for werewolf are the worst. So someone gets voted out, and statistically speaking, they probably weren't the werewolf. But now you have 2 dead people who are invested in the game, but can't say anything because they're dead. Now, I respect the dead, which is why I believe it is their right to have a separate, low-stakes game of something else on the side. Because if you don't, they are going to get bored and then directly interfere with everything that is happening within the game. Do you know how many games of Mafia I've won just by paying attention to the dead people? Because they give it away so easily, because they're bored. And that's okay. But also, then you're not figuring anything out. Now, I'm not saying we should banish and burn the dead like they're Black Plague victims. All I'm saying is that they should have something mildly entertaining to do on the side if it's a large game. Something that ideally they can pause so they can tune back in when things get interesting. So as you have 2 dead people about to set up a game of Uno, the rest of the villagers are on their second night. And as the townies close their eyes to sleep, maybe they're thinking, oops, I hope the person I just randomly voted out wasn't pivotal to a townie victory. Anyway, wake up! Oh my god. There's been a murder!
Friends? No thanks. Best friend.
And as you look at the 7 people who are left in the game, you start to think, who are you? Do I really know you? Because that's the problem with social deception games. They are terrible to play depending on the group of people you are with. Like, are you playing this game with people you're just meeting and who you are actively trying to bond with outside of the game? Well, I don't know. Maybe the game that requires you to lie to their face isn't really a good start. How are you supposed to build a relationship with any of the people you're playing with if you're basically asking them to look at how well you lie? And this wouldn't be a problem if everyone was on the same level of competitiveness. But guess what? They aren't, and that's the whole problem. Social deception games are stressful to play with people who you've just met and are almost impossible to play with people who know you really well. So it's the second round of voting and someone died the night before, which means that the werewolf is still in play. So shocker, just voting to vote someone out wasn't actually that good of a strategy, now was it? But you have another chance, a redemption, for all 7 people left on this board. You point out that 3 people have died so far, even though it's only your second night. Which means that if you continue to randomly vote out people, and the doctor fails to do their job because they either got voted out or killed in the last round, you only have 3 rounds left until an automatic werewolf win. The math goes something like this. First round starts and someone has to die, so automatically the game starts and there is 9 people left. If you randomly vote someone off for the first vote, now you have 8 people left. If you didn't vote out the werewolf, then now you have 7 people left. If you randomly just vote again, now you have 6. Third round murder means that there's 5 people left, which means you start the voting at 4. And it keeps going like that until you have 2 people, and then it means it's an automatic win for the werewolf. Let's hope the people who were potentially a village role that you voted off weren't the seer or the doctor.
No, but you don't get it, because if we don't vote someone off, it gives the werewolf another chance to kill again.
Right, but if we just randomly vote people off without thinking, then we're actively tanking our own advantage, which is the seer and the doctor, as well as the fact that there are more villagers than werewolves.
I think that we should vote vote because it's the one thing we can do.
Of course, your villagers have decided that they're just gonna vote for whoever talks the loudest, because what's the point in actually strategically thinking about something in a game that's designed around deduction? Anyway! R.I.P. There are now 6 people left. Close your eyes and let's start this night out right. As you close your eyes, you might feel rage begin to simmer at the bottom of your stomach. You might start to think, how many more games of werewolf am I gonna have to play before I die? On both a physical level and an in-game level, can someone kill me, please? Good morning. We're down to 5 players. That's half of the people you originally started with, which means that you've probably voted out the seer or the doctor, since everyone is dying on such a high level. If you choose to vote someone out, you only have 1 round to stop an automatic werewolf. Oh, you've already chosen to vote someone out? Okay, no, that's fine. Well, close your eyes and go to sleep. The nightly roles will be performed to the best of their ability. Somber energy in here. Yeah, there's only 3 of you left. If the villagers want to win this, you have to get this vote right. If not, that's 1 villager versus 1 werewolf. And, we've seen how well that works out. Unrelated, the Uno game is going stellar.
Everyone has Uno, dipshit. It came free with your fucking Xbox.
I don't fucking have Uno, motherfucker!
Go to Uno on the arcade and you'll be able to download it for free, motherfucker!
It's down to you, the person who made us play werewolf, and Merthyr. The person who made us play werewolf claims seer, and then levels their gaze at you and accuses you of being the werewolf. You? Excuse me? The only person who has made a single valid point in the last 3 rounds? You turn to Merthyr and say, you have to be kidding me. Listen, I've been trying very successfully to rein myself in, but the person who made us play werewolf could not be a more obvious werewolf if they tried. You have been against mass voting since the beginning. The person who made us play werewolf is obviously just claiming seer because they know statistically they've probably already killed him off, and nobody else is alive to claim seer.
No man, it's them. I'm literally the seer. It's gotta be them.
The person who made us play werewolf casts their vote for you. You stare at Merthyr, begging them to see logic and reason. And Merthyr casts their vote in your favor. The person who has made us play werewolf has been voted out, and they are a villager. But no, if they're seer, then that means that you were the werewolf the whole time. Because you might hate werewolf, but you hate losing even more. The last time I played One Night Werewolf, it took an hour and a half to explain the rules, and then we couldn't even finish the first round because no one understood what was going on. Which is why you need an easy and simple game that encourages different level of solo strategy. So if you want to get crazy with it, you can, but if you want to just play it, you can just play it. Which is why Catan is the best party game